Greetings, welcome to another day of Autoforge development. Today we worked on localization support, that is providing support for the game to be able to have different languages. So we could, do English as well as Japanese and German, etc., whatever. So just providing support for that. And so, yeah, in this video, we'll just be talking about what that really means in the game and how it looks like. So, the most important thing is that we have some entry that represents like a key to some text. So, whenever we have any sort of text in the game, we need to always be using the localization key. So that might look something like inventory title, which could be the title of the inventory dialog. And whenever that gets localized to or translated to another language, we need to make sure that that is actually displayed in the game properly. So we use the keys, and then somewhere we use the key to get the actual value of the current localization. So what we do is we have these entries, and I have some other stuff category, which I'll talk about in a bit. Key and value. Well, actually, the category really all that is just like some context for the localizer, so they know, is this being displayed in the UI? Is this some dialogue coming from a character or what? And yeah, that's all the category is, and that might change in the future. And then we have the localization, which is made up of these entries. And so localization might be something like English, with the code being the localization code, like EN or JP. And then if we should do word wrapping for that localization. Some languages are very tricky to do word wrapping, or they just don't have it at all. And so we have that available to like kind of toggle on and off. And then the styling, which I'll talk about in a bit. So really that ends up just being some representation of a language like Japanese or English. And then our locale namespace is the thing that really connects this all together, where we can be able to get a localization given some key, and this will just use our current localization, and we can change our current localization just by doing a change. And at the beginning of the game, when we load up everything, we load up our localization files, which I'll show in a moment. And then actually, I think we can go ahead and just look at that right now, what the localization file will look like. So it might look something along these lines, where we have some English. Well, this is obviously not English, but just testing things out. And then this is the key. This is the like value of this entry, and then this is this dialogue title is the context or category. And so I mentioned the styling earlier, and that allows us to change the styling of the UI based off of the current localization. And that is very helpful in that we need to be able to change the font, but also maybe some other information like the font size might need to change based off of the font. Or we might want to change the outlining or the color, because perhaps color means different things in different languages. So yeah, just we can change any of the styling however we want, just with the localization, which I think is a really cool thing. Hopefully it ends up being useful. This is new, so I haven't really played around with that much. And so what that all ends up looking like is, we run the game, we can see our inventory title is now that Japanese text. So that's awesome. Really cool. Fortunately, we can just use a standard string, and since that's just, these character bytes, we can just pass that around everywhere, and then whenever it gets to our font manager that is, helping render things, it properly handles uh, that text, even though it's not just, ASCII characters. So one last piece of the puzzle that we're not actually doing right now, but I thought I would mention is this localizer tool that I think we'll eventually add in support for. What it does is this is something I made for Korea a few years ago, and while I never actually got any official localizations into Korea, I still know some community members were using it, and it seemed like it was a much preferred solution than the previous one. I can't see how it wasn't. What it really does is it will load up the localization, or like the core localization, usually like en.local, and it will display all of the categories and how many entries in each category need to be updated. Uh, and so if you click on a category, you might see something like this. And so this is an item name. And here's all of these entries that need to be updated, denoted by the little exclamation mark. And then once the localizer fills in the entry, that exclamation mark will be removed, and you can even see the localization entry preview on in the game, and it contains all of the correct information for styling. So it will have the correct font as well as the correct font size and space, the width that's available to it. So the localizer really gets a good sense of what it's going to look like in the game. And then whenever they save that, we actually have this like UID that's saved with it that allows us to kind of track what text that localization was made for, and then in future updates, if the localization entry changes, it can detect that change by just looking at the hash between what's saved for that localization and what is the new localization entry. And if they don't match, then we can display a little exclamation mark icon and just say, hey, yeah, you need to update this to have the localization be updated to this new version. So it's much easier to track what needs to be updated and whatnot. Before, they had to just kind of like scroll through 4,000 lines of text trying to find what possibly changed, probably looking at some diff or something, but now we do that for them. And so this is a really cool feature that I'll probably add in later. We obviously don't need now. I wanted to add in the support for the localization because I just wanted to make sure that we're being honest with ourselves as we're adding in gameplay text, that we are actually using localization text rather than just inserting the localized text into the game. Because then, if we did do that, at some point down the road, we would have to go through all of the game scripts and find the localized text and migrate it over into the localization file. And that would just be a huge kind of annoyance to do. So yeah, just trying to be at least a little forward thinking here. And yeah, that's localization. If you guys have done any localization for games, I'm very interested to hear what you have done, or if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.